Hi there, John Hodges-Batska here. I'm so glad that you're joining us for another in our devotion series, looking at the Gospel of John. John with John and John. So today we'll be looking at a passage from chapter 7, verses 40 through 52, talking a little bit about Jesus' hometown, what it means to be where we're from. So join me in this Gospel passage as we take a look at it. When some in the crowd heard these words, they said, "This man Jesus is truly the prophet." Others said, "Maybe he's the Christ." Even others said, "The Christ can't come from Galilee, can he? Didn't the scriptures say that the Christ comes from David's family and from Bethlehem, David's village?" So the crowd was divided over Jesus. Some wanted to arrest him, but no one made a move to grab him. The guards returned to the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they asked, "Why didn't you bring him?" The guards answered, "No one has ever spoken the way he does." Then the Pharisees replied, "Have you too been deceived? Have any of the leaders believed in him? Has any Pharisee? No, only this crowd, which doesn't know the law. And they are under God's curse." Nicodemus, who was one of the Pharisees, and had come to Jesus earlier, said, "Our law doesn't judge someone without first hearing him and learning what he is doing, does it?" So the Pharisees answered him, "You are not from Galilee too, are you? Look it up, and you will see that the prophet doesn't come from Galilee." Now, I have a lot of love for my hometown of Detroit. I love the Tigers and the Lions for some reason. I love the food. If you've never had halal pepperoni on a Detroit-style pizza, you are missing out in life for sure. And it's a place where opportunities in the auto industry helped my grandfather and my father provide for their family for generations. It's a place that I truly love. But I also know that most people, when they think of Detroit, don't think of those great things. They think of some of the negatives. They think of the crime, the political, the corruption. They think of, well, the Tigers and the Lions, so I guess maybe there's some things we both think alike about. But today's passage shows that people probably thought pretty negatively about Jesus' hometown as well. Now, we all know from the Christmas story that Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem, coming from David's line. And you probably are thinking, or maybe it's just me singing "O Little Town of Bethlehem" in the back of their head right now. But that's what's been going on the entire time I've thought of this passage. But the Gospel of John doesn't really have a traditional Christmas story. Everyone kind of just refers to Jesus as being from Galilee and the town of Nazareth there, as that's where he grew up. That's where his family currently lived. That's where he called home as an adult. And the Pharisees had nothing good to say about Galilee. Despite all of Jesus' great teachings, his healings, his miracles, the Pharisees are stuck focusing on where he comes from. The Pharisees teach us a very important lesson about judging a person just because of where they come from. One of my favorite ways of procrastinating, especially during this whole COVID situation, is to look up where famous people are from. I find it fascinating. Recently I learned that Jackie Robinson, the baseball player who broke the color barrier, is from a little town in southern Georgia called Cairo, Georgia. Now, it's only a town of about 9,000 people, and it calls itself the syrup capital of South Georgia, which I guess is something to be famous for. But it's not exactly a town where you would expect one of the most influential people of the 20th century to come from. But it's an interesting illustration. It shows how God can use amazing people from anywhere in our world to do God's work. God uses Jesus, in fact, whose home is just in a little town out in the wilderness of Galilee, to bring us closer to God, to bridge that gap, and to provide reconciliation and joy to all of us. This passage calls us to remember that God can surprise us in so many ways. God can use people regardless of where they come from. I'm so glad that you joined us for our devotion today. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to go ahead and maybe share this with a friend, or go over to our YouTube page and hit subscribe so you can see more videos just like this one. Thanks for being here today.